Hey Andrew, good morning. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Cool. Why don't you just start by introducing yourself and then telling us what you do and maybe how you got into QA?
My name is Andrew Bjorlie. I work as an Advance QA Analyst at Hi-Rez Ventures. Working on Smite 2 right now. Um, been here for I've been in the industry for it's like almost 11 years now. Since I started. So, but I do I mean I've kind of seen a lot of different facets of QA at this point. So, um over the years, but I started more like on the community bug reporting side, and at this point, I'm deep in. I'm doing all kinds of. I'm doing things that I'm not even sure traditional QA would be thought of to do because at
Oh,
this
I'm
point,
curious.
I'm
So your first job was through co- um like community manager? What was it?
it was I was like the community facing QA
Oh, okay.
for Smite 1, like it's the first project I when I first got into the industry from it's kind of weird. I was just basically really good at Smite. um, I was a pretty well known person in the Smite community at the time, and I'd been to like the early launch tournaments, and I'd met a bunch of devs on the team there. And at some point, QA wasn't my original plan. I was actually going to go into teaching.
Oh,
Um, which I had that's like where I thought I was going to go with life because I love teaching, and I don't know. And some they eventually I just got contacted and they were like, "Hey, we've been looking for somebody to do QA. Would you want to move out here?" And it was kind of a whirlwind fast because it was like within 2 weeks I was out here working on Smite, and it was
how,
since
how,
then I just really loved it. I've been working in it since. So
that's pretty cool. How was that for you? I mean, being such a huge fan of the game and then now you get to work on it. What did that feel like?
it was kind of wild.
I can imagine,
Initially,
yeah.
it was one of those like it was something I just was definitely not expecting. Right? I was like at the time because at the time I'd done like I had been in like their bug reporting and their forums, and at the time I found like one of the craziest bugs to ever with the game. Like it was like a whole lot of conditions to cause a bug, and I think that's kind of where it came from. Is I was working pretty close with like a couple people, just QA and like production, just were like watching. At the time, I was streaming. That was like part-time income for me. I was streaming Smite, and I would go on stream, and people would pop in my stream and one of my friends' streams. He also works here now,
Cool.
but we would just be playing the game and talking about things we find. And when we ran into bugs, we'd talk about them, explain them, and it was a whole thing. So, but yeah, at the time, it was just a huge surprise. It was kind of like, oh yeah, I guess like let's try this out. And I don't know, I just loved it.
Did they have a lot of QA people already set up prior to you joining, or were you like one of the first ones?
At the time, I was pretty early on the project. I think at the time when I first came in, we had 3 people.
Okay.
Um, it was me and 2 other guys, and then we kind of had a separate at the time. This was way back, right? We had a separate kind of console QA because console hadn't released yet. Smite like was just on the market as like a PC only game, and it started moving to console, and so we had a second console team, but they like barely interfaced with us at the time. Over time, that came to change, but it was they were like handling the console side of QA, which like certification,
Right.
and we were just PC QA only. And I specifically was more the community side of QA in that I was in our bug reporting channels collecting bugs, and I'd basically get videos of people having bugs, and I my job at the time was basically just, hey, try and figure out what's happening in these clips, right? I was barely doing like old like traditional QA work. It was more it was more like I almost felt like I was doing like kind of like speedrunner work, right? It was one of those, here's this bug, how does it happen?
A
Replicate it,
lot of
right?
reproduction, yeah, investigation and
Yeah.
yeah. That's a pretty cool QA story, I'm not gonna lie. Just like uh being such a huge fan of the game and then like not really looking for a job there, but they reach out to you. That's kind of cool. I mean, I feel like that happens pretty rarely. So,
Yeah, it
um
was it was a surprise for sure.
that's awesome. Um you can know, I guess you could always do some teaching on the side for like game dev or what kind of teaching did you want to do?
At the time I was going to go into a private school. I was this it also kind of combines interests, right? I was when I went through college, what I went through was like classics. So it was a lot of my focus was in Greco-Roman mythology.
Cool.
Um, and Smite's a game about mythology. So
Yeah,
and
that
it
worked
was
out.
it was kind of like a weird that's which is why I was interested in it initially. And then when I got here, it also became like they'd be like designing a new character, like a new god, and often like a designer would come and ask like, "Hey, we're making this character. Is there like anything we should be careful of, right?" And a lot of the time I could answer that because I'd have a billion books on mythology and like random stuff like that. So initially I'd wanted to go into like private school teaching, and I was going to do like English lit or teaching Latin. Um, but at
Now
this
you're
point,
here.
my Latin has gotten much worse. So
Wow. So now that you've been doing QA for a while, and that really wasn't your plan originally,
yeah.
do you do you think you're going to stay in QA or do you have aspirations for maybe a different discipline?
Um, I've been in QA a long time now. Uh, I've thought about maybe branching to like other things. But right now, I'm pretty happy where I am, right? So I like what I do. But again, what I do, I feel like I've sort of started branching a little bit into the design side. And I have some thought of like maybe I can move that way, but right now I'm just really happy where I am. I actually really like what I do. So
What's like your favorite thing? It sounds cool that you're able to do a little bit of you said design work too, which is, I think it's when a QA person can kind of have like different kind of skills. I think it's advantageous. So that's cool.
yeah.
What do you love most about QA?
Um, I would say I'm kind of like I'm the kind of person I just like really like I like puzzles in some way, and I feel like QA a lot of the time your work it's sort of like a puzzle, right? It's like, hey, here's the thing, kind of break it. And that's like the most base version of the job, right? It's not truly everything we do, but I do really love finding ways to like just do unintended things and cause problems, I guess.
Hmm.
So like I think what the part of QA I love the most is actually what I initially was doing when I hired, which is was hired, which is like, hey, here's a clip. It's very confusing. Trying what happened here that caused this bug, right? I love that kind of work
Me
because
too.
it's just a lot of fun to like see a video, be like, what in the world happened there, and then you look through every kind of interaction. You're puzzling it out, and then you figure out, oh, I think I know what happened, and then actually reproducing it is like one of like it's fulfilling, I guess. It's like, yes, I finally got this. So
That's my favorite part too. And like if say a new feature's coming down, like preparing tests for it, and then feel like you have it pretty well covered, but then like there's a scenario you didn't even think about how it's connected to something else in the game. And like I love that we could find bugs like that. We catch them, but like also that like wow, I didn't it's a like a learning, like I didn't even consider that scenario and I'm like constantly learning new ways to think about how to test something. So I guess just more internally for like QA and the development team, how how do you communicate like the value of QA to teams that maybe don't understand it. Like if you're trying to, if you have like maybe an idea for like a new workflow or like a new, if you're in need of maybe some testing tool or something like, and maybe, you know, production or whoever design maybe are not on board with it right away, or maybe just don't understand the potential benefits. Have you ever like encountered a scenario like that, or how do you just in general communicate like how important we are to like the team?
uh, I think to some extent I was very lucky because when I first moved on to Smite, it was a pretty small team. Like it was pretty close knit at that point. So we were kind of already integrated into the dev team. So it kind of became really natural to just be like, hey, let's talk to each other. I think it became really important. Like the I think the most valuable is talking to like the programming engineering side, design and production. Those three are probably the most important
Yeah.
to have really good like communication with. Um, and I was kind of able to do that off the bat. There was a little bit of pushback, but I think to some extent you just sort of need to present it in a um less in like a pass fail way. Um, I think there's this thought sometimes that like QA is sort of adversarial to
Yeah. We're not
production,
we're not
and
against
it's
you. Yeah.
yeah, it's like we're here to be like, oh no, you just can't ship that, right?
You messed up. Yeah.
Yeah, like you screwed up, you need to fix this kind of thing, and it's one of those like I think you need to get in early, and I think that's getting a lot better just across the industry from
I think
most
so.
friends
Yeah.
I've talked about. Is getting QA in earlier in the cycle as opposed to like the old waterfall approach of like your last line of defense. Your everything pours into you and you just try and stop it all and become more like risk assessors, I guess, in a like,
Yeah.
hey, where like you kind of define things as like low risk, medium risk, high risk. Um, and just approaching conversations in that way made a huge difference of like, okay, here's like it's not like, oh, hey, you're gonna get to us and then we're gonna come to you and be like, no, you can't. It's one of those like when you're starting something, talking about the risks associated, what might what might you run into, and then as it goes into production, testing early and being like, hey, here's problems, right? And that that kind of approach really changed for like a lot for us when it came to just how other teams saw our QA team, right? It became a lot more like, okay, we talk back and forth. And nowadays, I mean, when Smite 2 started, um, I was the first one moved to the project when it was like 7 people, I think. And I was in there as a QA when it's like an incubator project, right? And
Yeah.
it kind of
What
became from the start, what kind of tools do you think we'll need?
nice.
What kind of things should we set up to make sure that we can like do this way more efficiently?
That's cool. I love getting in super early with stuff like that so you can kind of lay the foundation of like and try to think ahead about what you might need.
Yeah.
Sorry, phone. Um, that's really cool. Um, Speaking of like tools and stuff, I saw that you might have or you have a little bit of experience like designing and implement. Is that what you're talking about maybe? Of like
Um, I'd say on the
implementing?
design side, there was part of it was just, hey, what tools do we need? What can we make that would help out? And early on, um, again, when it was like 7 people, there weren't many people on the project, and UE5 was totally new to us when we moved into Smite too. So like nobody on the team really had good experience with UE5 because we were all working on UE3. So it's a 2 generation leap.
Wow.
But when we got to UE5, it was like, okay, what can we do? What kind of things can we make? And we made a little debugging tool that basically it's just a hit a hotkey. Here's a debug menu, and it became like, okay, so what kind of things can we shove in this menu that's like good and useful for QA? And I think on at that point it was sort of working as like it was kind of designing that tool in a way where it's like, okay, what can we use? So we have like just a button that can change you to any god, a drop down that gives you skins, but also things like a whole menu that basically you can change any of your character stats to whatever number you want.
Oh, nice.
And then we can like equip a loadout for those. And there's just a bunch of different like aspects to that tool that are just really helpful for just any QA coming in, but not even just QA. There's other devs can open that tool and be like, oh, hey, here's what we can do. Um, to that front. But then eventually I learned a lot of blueprints. And so I would go in and mess with that tool and I'd add my own buttons.
That's
So
awesome.
it started as a like, okay, here programming, how can we support you? And then it kind of became like, how can I do this? Like, and I looked into it, figured it out, and went, okay, I think I can start adding things to this on my own. So there's still some things I'll need programming support for. Like if there's things that I need to do in like a native code, then yeah, it's harder for me. So it's like I'll need programming support. But
Yeah, in the same way. That's really cool. Yeah, I'm actually doing something similar where um more of like utilizing telemetry to maybe how we can use that a little bit more on the QA front. And like I was talking to one of the product managers and he was saying how like they had this one use case that they were looking into, but it's like on a designer's backlog. And was like, well, might be able to help. So like I'm kind of investigating instead of waiting for like a designer to eventually get to it. I'm like, I'm gonna try to do it for because it'd be helpful for us. So
yeah.
kind of the same mindset. Um, so you're in a more senior QA role now, obviously, like after all your experience. Um, I'm assuming you have experience kind of like mentoring other QA folks who are more junior. How
Yep.
do you recognize when somebody's like ready for more responsibility um in that front?
um when it comes it's a good question because it's a very like it's a very feels based thing, right? It's not I don't know if there's like a real scientific answer for that. For me. Um I think like usually when we brought on somebody new, I think the most useful things to do were just, hey, try and we found this is a very, very useful over time, is just, hey, let's have you shadow somebody for a bit. Um, you're not going to do anything really early on. Just here's like our processes, what we do. And on other time, just be like, hey, try and learn the game. Look through the systems. We have a bunch of documentation on the game that you can learn from. Try and learn like how the game works, what the systems are, because just getting really familiar with that before you move into something a bit bigger, which is like, all right, now let's have you look through each character, play with them a bit, see what you can find off of that. Just playing, right? Not you're not
Mhm.
really like nothing, no like specific real quick test scenarios yet, but just easing people in. And I think over time you start to learn like they'll like they'll come back with like, oh hey, here's a thing I found, and it's like, oh okay, that's cool. Like, and it's you just develop over time. Eventually you start recognizing because they'll get quicker, they'll understand things a lot faster. And like they do be you'll notice pretty quickly that they're becoming much more autonomous, right? I think that's a really important aspect, is just getting people to the point where they're autonomously working, and it's not like here's a checklist, go through the checklist, right? um because checklists are useful, obviously. They're very important, but yeah, I feel like the most value when it comes to like bringing somebody into a QA team is getting them to like critically think off that checklist. And then I think they become more and more able to take on more responsibility, right? And they can get to the point where it's instead of just like, oh, we're doing this checklist, we're finding bugs, let's go. They might go, hey, why are we doing it this way? right? And you can at that point sort of improve like the whole team's process. Be like, because if it might make sense, it might just be, hey, why are we looking at it this way? And then it's like, yeah, actually, I agree with you. This we this we're a little weak here, and how could we make that better, right? So
it is hard to know. You kind of have to feel it out with the person. But like in like especially if you see like potential in the person and they're like maybe a little bit more shy about it, they think like, I don't know, I don't think I'm ready. That's when they're ready. So like I like kind of like I ease them into like because I know they could do it. They just don't they need more confidence. So like I kind of ease them into like, can you like there's this new feature coming. Can you like write a test plan for it? And like I'll review it or whatever. But it, like start like pushing them more into like taking more responsibility to for stuff like that. And then like eventually they could lead a part of the project. So like you kind of have to like what you said, like kind of feel it out and
yeah,
go about it in a smart way.
yeah, I think it very much changes person to person too. There's definitely people for whom it's taken, and it's not to say they're like bad at what they do, right? But it does take longer for some people to grasp certain things, right? There's and even just different facets of QA. Some people are just better at certain parts of it. So
Hmm.
you very much just have to feel it out. It's a because also to what you're saying, where it's like they just don't have the confidence. I think everybody runs into like some form of imposter syndrome, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
And like even later, like there's times even now where I'm like, man, am like I have like, am I like okay with all this responsibility, right? Like I'll think about it. I'm like, I mean, I got here, but I feel like it's one of those because, and I think maybe it's just because games are um they don't they're it's not like as corporate an environment usually, and so it doesn't feel like there's like a always 100% direct, like here's like you don't get like the same sort of corporate feedback loop, or specific training plans. So you a lot of it is like you just start to learn it. It's kind of like, am I doing this right? Right, over time, and I mean, it works out. It's one of those things where you just kind of have to be like, hey, how like watch what they're doing, see how they're adapting to whatever they have, um, and just kind of give them more and more responsibility as it goes. But it's really hard to pinpoint when exactly someone is ready. I do think it is like when people say they're not ready for something, it's kind of like you might be right. Like,
Yeah, I've run into that. What do you think is important, like skills that for QA people to develop regardless of like their experience, whether they're a junior or like senior? What's good to
hmm. Uh,
could be like
regardless of
a
experience.
hard skill or like a soft skill. Like you've mentioned like communication a lot. And I know, and I'm sure you know that that's super important for any QA person to like be able to communicate with other teams and like you said like risk assessment, like being able to communicate like how this we should maybe pay more attention to this because it's a lot of
Yeah,
problem areas here. Like, yeah.
I think. Um, I think those are also like I do think those are very important. I think communication is almost certainly key, but I think it also depends on like how your project's set up, how much who you can communicate with. I think something that kind of applies to all is you just kind of have to hone, um, and I guess an eye for detail, right? You have to be very good at like, hey, there's something wrong here that like a lot of other people wouldn't catch, right? And so it's like you have to kind of it's a skill, right? It's something that you learn. When I started out, I wasn't nearly as good at it. Um, but being able to just look at something and like be able to really see like things that are wrong, like have it like it's eye for detail is such a, it doesn't feel like the right word, but I think that's what it is. It's the um being able to discern even like small things, just like that are just wrong with something, I guess.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You need to be very detail oriented.
Yeah.
Um, this is a question I like to ask just because I don't know. I wish that a podcast like this or like really more YouTube was really early on, so like there really wasn't anything around. But just when I was at college for like getting my degree in game development and just like I didn't know anything about QA and just the game industry was still kind of foreign to me. Like, what advice would you give somebody who has like zero QA experience, and maybe they're interested in getting their first industry job as a QA person? I know the last couple years have been like insane for the industry. It's really scary. It sucks, but what kind of advice would you give someone like right now who's trying to break in or
I think especially right now, right? Where it's rough getting a job, especially like as somebody who's totally new.
yeah.
Um, I think one of like if one of the most important things I think as somebody who's like outside of the industry, um, is just showing it, finding a way, and this is specifically for getting a job, right? It's finding a way to show like your passion and drive towards a thing, and that might mean like you're applying for a specific place, like, and you've if you get an interview, right, um learn as much as you can about that about what you're trying to move into, right? It's one of those, now it's homework, right? Now it's okay, maybe you got an interview for a place you didn't really know that well. Try and learn as fast as you can what their project is, like what like what they do, what they're like, because um through a lot of interviews, it is like, if I can see, I can overlook somebody's technical skills if I can see like they have like a draw, like they're hungry, right? It's one of those like I the critic, like displaying critical thinking skills, and like if I feel like you as a person want to be better at this role as you go, that's like
Hmm.
way more important to me.
Totally.
It's the like, if you can somehow show me that like, hey, I want to be here and I want to like I want to be better at this thing. I know like it's not one of those like I am good, this is where I am, this is my value. It's like I want to get here and get better, right? If you can
That's
like show that to somebody interviewing you, however you can do it, I think it's a huge world of difference. Like my favorite interviews are ones where like somebody comes in and it's just like I can tell this person is like A, excited, B, they know what they're getting, like they understand what they're getting into, and they're like, hey, I want to get really good at this. It's not just here's what I am, here's what I come with, like presenting yourself, right? Because I've had interviews where it's that too. It's like, hey, here's my current skills, and it's like, okay, but like how would you want to evolve, right? So
that's great advice, honestly. Especially I think that's good advice in general, but I would say, yeah, even more so now, because everyone always has said like make sure you research the company, but like when you're competing against like so many other people now who like are fighting for the same job more than ever, if you could stand out by like being like having the skills to like do the job, but like also being like really passionate and knowledgeable about the game or the company and like being genuine about it, like I think that would totally stand out.
yeah, and you don't have to be like, oh, I'm a 10-year long fan of this series. If you
No.
weren't, like, if you lie about that, we will catch you, right? I have had interviews where somebody comes in and says, oh yeah, I've loved Smite since beta. I've been
You're like,
playing
I
since
didn't even
beta.
like it since
and
beta.
and it's like the most simple like question, because when you say that in an interview to me, my immediate thought is going to be like, oh, that's cool, I like Smite too, like, what's your favorite blank about the game? And if you can't answer that, I'm immediately like, oh, so they're lying to me. Like,
What else are they
it's
lying about?
because
Yeah.
I'm excited about it too, man. Like, you're saying, oh, I love Smite, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, I love Smite too. Like, what's even just like, what's your favorite god? I have literally asked that, and people have been like, oh, and then they get stuck for a while and don't really answer, and I'm like, if you're like a 10-year long van, that's like a immediate answer. It's not a like, so I've you it's one of those like, be genuine about it. But show like, hey, I am passionate about this. Maybe I wasn't like a fan the whole time, but I've learned. Like I've been paying attention. I'm like, I get it, right? Like, it just being able to show off that excitement and like the, hey, I want to get in here, I want to learn, is just, it's, you present so much better in an interview if you can do that from like a genuine place.
I agree. I guess thinking back to like your whole career, um, maybe like what's one major lesson that you've learned that you wish you had known maybe getting in the first place? Some advice that you could give yourself, I guess.
Hmm. Um, what advice would I have for like a? I think. Well, I guess I don't know. I think a lot of the major lessons I've learned are things that I like needed to learn at that time, right? I don't know if I went back and told myself these things early on, I might not have even understood them. Um, I think a lot of what I'd say to like a somebody who's like just my early QA self, is that like, I guess not, it's one of those like, not to worry, it's really just not to worry about like what my performance is, right? And like, not to freak out constantly about like, am I doing okay, about like, is this a fine time? Because I mean, you sort of learn that in quarterly reviews, but it's really easy to fall into imposter syndrome really early. um and I think it's worth like, I think if I think it would be nice to have known back then that like, that uncertainty doesn't go away and it's kind of normal. It's one of those like,
Yeah.
it's not, you don't, you never like fully get rid of it. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, but it's okay that you like to feel that way sometimes, right? um
It certainly
I
happened to
think that
me.
I think that would have been most helpful to me, right? It's the, just knowing, okay, yes, this is like a scary thing that's being given to you, but it's like, it's okay to be like a little intimidated by what you're doing, and like what level of responsibility you're getting, which I guess we touched on earlier, but
No,
um
it's good advice. And I've even gotten that even in my current job of like being surrounded by people. For me, the imposter syndrome is like being surrounded by people who are like really good at what they're doing. And like you see some of them like doing some really cool things, and it's like, dang, like this guy's like so good at what he does. Like it kind of pushes me to like, okay, what? Let me take a step back. Like, how can I improve my skills? Like, what can I start doing differently for myself and like for the team? So like, it's a little bit like at first I'm like, I don't think I am qualified to be here, and then it's after that brief moment, it's like, okay, but how can I try to improve my skills here?
I think everybody runs into that, like all the time, right? I've heard people just even moving to like other disciplines that are like, man, I hate it here, I'm so confused, and I'm just like, you'll get it, right? It's because I've had people who've moved from QA to community. I've people
Hmm.
who, I'm like, who are part of our like esports production that moved into the dev team in QA. Like, everybody gets it, where it's like, it's like, I don't feel like I even am ready for this, right? And it's like, you kind of need to put that in the back of your head and push through a bit, because I think everybody has, I still get it, yeah, like you said, it's like, um I again, I've been doing like blueprinting work, and at this point I'm going into like, there's some things with because we're a live product where I see a bug in the wild and I'm like, oh, I know where that lives in Blueprint and I've gone and fixed it.
Oh, nice. That's really cool.
And it's like, I've as I've gotten more into that, I'm like, okay, well, I get hungrier for like, okay, let's like learn more about blueprints because this is useful. I can do this, right? But as I do it, I see a designer start prototyping something, and I'm like, what in the world? Like they'll move at like 20 times my speed, and I'm like, I
Hmm.
guess I suck at this, but you when you can push that out, it's like, okay, they've had way more time on this, like they know what they're doing, like that kind of thing, right? It's I guess talent exists, but it only goes so far, even if you are like very talented, right? It's a you do have to learn things. So, and I think I was pretty hard on myself early on in QA of just like when I'm doing, I did this wrong, like, oh no, like this is the end kind of thing, right? And it's you kind of have to push that back and like learn like as you go forward. I think that's like the one thing that would have helped me a lot early on is just don't worry when you do the small thing wrong, or like don't freak out and constantly question yourself on things. So
I think that's great advice. I guess kind of similar is for people like us, like more experienced QA people, what advice would you give them for like staying relevant or like continuing to grow in their careers? How do you do it and what do you think works?
that's I think I sort of went over that a little bit just now, but
Yeah.
I think like for me it was I just I think learning new skill sets as much as you can, especially it's I guess it's harder if you're on like a enormous team or you're working as like contract QA, and it's like you're on a team of like 150 people and you're not really interfacing with the dev team much. Like um it's a bit different there, I would think. But on a personal level, like how I just try and learn as much as I can the things that would help like me work, I guess. So things like, oh, hey, there's this dev tool. Everybody's kind of new to UE5. I'm gonna start learning blueprints. I'll figure out like how can I implement this, and um, so that I don't have to rely on somebody else or another team to get something done. Just I think staying ahead of the game, it's going to be highly dependent on where you are, like what your team is doing, what they're working on, that kind of thing. But I think constantly be looking out for like where can I help, right?
Mm.
Like what can I do to speed us up, even if it is something like for me, it's like normally I'd see a bug and we'd be like, all right, let's send it to programming, send it to design. And for me, it's like, well, I know where it is, I know where it lives. I have access to Perforce. Like, why not? I'll make the change, push it, and say, hey, heads up, I did this.
Right.
Um, kind of thing, and that it just speeds us up a lot more. And I know for us, we're a small team, it's okay that I'm doing that. Like I've built trust with people for a long time here, so
Yeah, make sure
it's
you
hard
get the okay.
it's hard to say like, oh yeah, just do that to somebody, but it's one of those like, look for where you're useful, look for where um you might be able to help, even if it is just getting more communication between teams, right? If you can communicate with like your programming team, try and build that bridge better, right? Like it's one of those like it's person to person, project to project, but learning like where you could be more useful, it's like constantly keep an eye out for that, because it's very easy in I guess all kinds of tech to fall behind, because it's like I'm if your skills aren't improving or you aren't adding more skills, you can fall behind just because that's everything else is getting more and more complex and confusing as it goes, right? Everything else is moving forward. If you're just, oh, I'm very good now, you end up falling behind, right? Just because by virtue of everything else getting better.
Yeah.
So
That's really good advice. I agree completely. Um, yeah, and it's just having that mindset of like improvement. I think even if you can't, like you said, like commit a change in
yeah,
Perforce to at least have the mindset of like, how can I maybe even like how can I make my job easier? That's like, I mean, that will probably improve the workflow in some way. So
Yeah, and even my path isn't necessarily what everybody would be able to do, right? So
yeah,
like, yeah, I can commit something to Perforce, but there's definitely people out there who are like good QAs that just would are maybe they're not comfortable or not very good with
yeah,
specific things. Like they're not grasping blueprints very well. So like that's just not a viable thing for them. But there's almost certainly something there that they can provide value that they're not currently. And it's like you need to keep an eye out for that. Like where if you it's kind of like if you're on a boat and there's like holes in the ship, you need to figure out how to plug that hole, right? Find your way to plug one of the holes.
yeah.
Um, so not to say every project is a sinking ship, but
It
it's
can.
a maybe bad analogy, but it's just like you need to find the spot like where maybe there's just a problem and you can solve it. Try
Yeah,
and do that, like get figure it out. So
yeah, totally. Um, You mentioned, yeah, like you said, like the tech and game industry changes so much with the different tools and stuff.
yeah.
What do you think the future holds for us in QA and games? I think about a lot with like I'm sure everybody else with like AI and how it's just going to keep getting better. What does that mean for us in games and like in QA? So I'm always thinking about that and I always wonder what other people are thinking about too.
um I do think AI is something that's like it's been moving into game dev. I mean, it was already there to be honest. Like there were already AI tools, just not the specific type of tools that are coming in now. And over time, like we've had a lot of teams like approach us or like tools just approach and be like, "Hey, we want to run a like just try to get us interested and we'd like run trials on different AI tools over time." And I think right now, like in the in the immediate, it does feel like it's like it's kind of those as I don't think right now there's like really great applications in QA for like AI at the
Hmm.
moment. Um, but it's one of those things that I think you're gonna have to look out for because even as like tools get better, right? There's a lot of really complex information that like your standard QA tester has to get into. And like AI right now is very good at like put it on the golden path, or make it test for like collision or like that kind of thing, right? You make a bot, you have it go down your golden path, make sure everything works. But it's not very good for like um I'm playing
Maybe
the game. Did this sound effect play properly? Like, is this the right sound effect that played? Is the volume okay? Like,
true.
there's like a lot of like just random complex audio visual things that bots are just not very good at catching um in most AI tools. I think for us, a lot of it, I think a lot of the most useful tools that'll come in like the near future are probably going to be things that like automate very I don't want to say mundane tasks, but like ways to like demystify QA and like bug reporting for like the whole team, right?
Oh yeah,
Ways
totally. Yeah.
like just ways to get like okay, let's getting something from being just a oh I saw a bug to like okay, it's now in QA's hands. Like just a way to automate that,
Yes.
ways to automate like okay we've posted a bug somewhere like can we get a Jira started automatically, right? And I think there's tools currently that help with that,
Hmm.
but I think we're going to see a lot more things move in like that over time. um, but I don't think the human element is really that in danger yet.
That's how I
it's
choose to think about it too.
it's
I'm trying to stay optimistic.
it's a like I just haven't ever been convinced of an AI tool that like it could really replace a QA's eye.
Hmm.
It might be able to replace like, oh, hey, I'm somebody who you have sitting there and just doing like collision testing, but
Right.
like it's that's not. that it's such a small part, and it's like, yeah, that's a really mundane task that we're getting rid of, and I think there's value in that. But
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen a tool that I'm just like, oh yeah, this could work really well as just a replacement. And it's one of those things where like as it, I think when it comes to like looking into the future, it's one of those things where like I guess maybe I'm just very skeptical. I need to be convinced. But it's even the things that they're doing right now as they get better at them, I'm like, even if you get better at this, I don't know how useful you would be over a human eye on some of these things. So it's like I guess it's one of those. Yeah,
Well,
we all need to
just
be paying attention. We all need to be paying attention to like what's coming, what's like what AI tools are available. But it's hard to be like
nobody knows. Yeah, it's very
nobody
true.
can. Yeah, I don't think anybody can be determine it. Like this is what it's going to be like. It's like you kind of have to keep your eye on it. And I think in the immediate future, we're more likely to see tools like that, where it's like, hey, let's make things easier for the whole team to get in on these processes.
I mean, I've seen that literally what you mentioned about it was actually I don't know if you've heard of Qualicon. It's like a quality assurance conference that happens every year. But I saw like somebody at a QA lead at Netflix had gave a talk about using AI tools in QA, and one of them was literally like integrating an AI bot into Slack to and you have to do certain conditions to like make the bot do its thing. But like basically, if somebody you're doing a company-wide playtest and somebody throws in like, "Hey, I saw this thing happening," the bot will like write a Jira, like with the video
Yep.
attached video. Like it cuts out a step of like us needing to like gather all this feedback, try to reproduce it, and like I so many times like a producer would be like, can you put this in Jira? And it's just like, "Oh, okay." And it's just like such an annoying step. But like if I had a bot that could just do it for me and then I can like go to the bug and kind of fill in some missing details, like it's
Yeah.
just just like a mundane thing that would kind of cut out a lot
Yeah,
of
that's
work.
one thing it's something that's we've experimented. I had no idea that there was a talk on that actually, but
I'll link it
it
to
is,
you. Well, I think you have to pay for like
yeah.
access. Luckily, we have access for free, but like, yeah, I could find the talk and link it to you and if you have access or not.
Yeah, sure, but yeah, I think funny enough, we've done a lot of things like that. Especially with Slack integration. Slack has its own inbuilt automation. Um, and we've set it to do things like that, right? So you can connect Slack to other to I guess different things. So like you can connect it to Trello, you can connect it to Jira, you can connect it to a bunch of things, and it's not too hard. I've set up automations that do things like if you react with an emoji, it'll immediately go ping you and be like, "Hey, do you want to make a Trello card for this?" And
Right.
then all it does is it connects it to if your accounts are connected, it just tosses your message into a Trello card. But like
Still
that
like
kind of
saves
thing,
time. Yeah.
it saves time and also the whole team can do it, right? So
Right.
it becomes a yeah, you just hit this button and then go to your Trello page and you can move the card into your own bucket, right? Like that kind of thing. It
Yeah.
sort of already exists. I think the tools are going to get a lot better at doing that because they're not very good at like
Yeah.
getting details filled out or like and I think there's a lot of ways you could do it so that like it could be more centralized rather than I react this way, get the Jira, then move into Jira and fill out the rest. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I do think there's going to be a lot of process improvements there because that's something that like it's gotten a lot better for us. Even just internally, like we've built a tool. Part of our bug reporting is when you're in game, if you have the dev tool, you can just or the command prompt, right? If you have access to our to dev commands, you can just go in game, open the command menu, and type bug. That'll print it. That'll take a screenshot, your
Hmm.
location, paste it into Slack in a specific channel, and
Yeah.
be like, "Hey, there's a bug here," and you can type a little short description of what happened, um, and just that. helps a lot with just like an artist sees something while they're doing something totally different. Like they could just type that and it shows up in this channel, and then QA can look at it, right?
Yeah, we have
So
something similar. It does help. Cool. I think we could wrap up here. This has been a really great talk. I guess to end it on a fun note, if you have time to play any games, like what are you playing right now?
what am I playing right now? Um, well, what recently came out, I've been playing Borderlands. But
Mm-hmm.
I think generally, if you were to ask me on like any given day, I play like a lot of weird indie roguelikes. Maybe not
Cool.
weird, but like I play like Gunfire Reborn. There's uh like RoboQuest. Like I don't know. I play a lot of like random roguelikes. I really like roguelike, like especially co-op roguelikes. I'm like really into those. I have a few friends that we love playing those. So
Nice. I'm been obsessed with it. I had my eye on it for like a year or so. The new Dragon Ball MOBA that came out. It released like last week or something. It's so fun. I'm like addicted to it.
they when you said that, I didn't even know there was a new MOBA. I was thinking you were talking about the one that I don't know if Namco put it out. There was like a it was like a sort of MOBA game, but it was there was like a mix of a lot of elements that got put in that game, and I thought you were talking about that. But if there's a new one, I've never seen it actually.
Yeah, it's
I should go
Genshin
look into that.
Squadra. It's a 4-on-4. I never really got into MOBAs. Like I missed Dota and League of Legends. My first one was Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah,
And because I tried like League of Legends with my cousin like years ago, and like I it wasn't the game for me. Like I didn't want to learn the store and like what items to buy and like so Heroes of the Storm was perfect for me because like I liked the more it was I don't know, it was just more for me. And then like Pokemon Unite, I played that a good amount. So this Dragon Ball MOBA is kind of like a combination of the two, which is
that
perfect for
sounds
me.
cool. I mean, Smite is a MOBA, so I've
Right.
I'm very familiar with the struggles of just getting into a MOBA. Um, it's tough. They're big games that almost feel like homework when you start out.
Yeah,
Um,
and I don't have time
it's
for that.
yeah, it's the here's like a daunting amount of like just information.
But some people love it. So like I'm
Yeah,
just not the player for it, which is fine.
but yeah, I love learning about new MOBAs because I mean I've played them all. Everything that currently exists. So I actually want to look into that and give it a try because I've played even like the weird obscure MOBAs. Like I loved Dawn Gate back in the day and like Infinite Crisis when that existed. So
I've heard of that one. Okay,
yeah.
yeah, cool. Um, yeah, is there anything else you wanted to cover that we didn't cover, I guess?
I don't think so.
Cool. Well, Andrew, it's really great meeting with you, talking with you. And we'll keep in touch. Thanks for
Yeah, it
doing
was
this.
awesome. Yeah, it was fun. Thank you.
Cool. I'm glad. Okay. Well, have a great morning and have a good weekend.
You too.
All right. Talk later. Bye.
Yep. Bye.